years ago, a young boy wrote me a letter asking for my help. I read that letter too many times to even count, and for years I lived in regret because I couldn't help him. Today, I brought a copy of that letter, and I'd like to read it out to you. Dear Pierre, I'm a 12-year-old middle school student, and I just started speaking English a few months ago. It's very difficult for me to write this letter, but my teacher, Miss Jessie, is helping me. My family just moved here because my parents want a better life for my sister and I. I'm struggling to fit in, and some kids at school make fun of my broken English. I wish to be happy and successful like you one day. Please, help me. Truth is, I'm not supposed to be here either. I myself was born in Syria, in a coastal city on the Mediterranean Sea called Latakia. If you were to look at my life as a mathematical equation, the probability of a Syrian boy ending up here on a TEDx stage would be very unlikely. I remember a long time ago, I saw my life roll out as this visual road, a very ordinary, predictable road. And if there's anything that I did want is to not have an ordinary life. I wanted to make real impact. I wanted to change the world. Not that there's anything wrong with being ordinary, but I just felt so out of control of my own destiny. And it almost felt like dreams at the time were just a fantasy that we're supposed to have so we can get by the day, but not really achievable. I always felt like dreams were never going to be achievable, at least for me. I kid you not, that every time I sit down and watch a movie with my dad, especially a science fiction movie, he goes on to say the same thing over and over and over. He says, how did these directors come up with all these creatures? How did the superhero survive against all the odds? And one thing that he continues on to say is that our brains are incapable of thinking or imagining something that hasn't either happened, is happening currently in the present day with or without our knowledge, or will happen one day in the future. And for some, that idea might be very far-fetched and out of proportion, but it really begs the question, is there a limit to what's possible? When we're young, we probably all got asked the same question. What do you want to be when you grow older? But as we actually grow older, we become so focused on paying our bills, pleasing society, and fitting in our expected roles that we slowly begin to minimize our childhood aspirations and almost live in a world that is less magical. We spectate successes on television, and then we begin to look at them and idolize them as our goal. We look at that Oscar win, or we look at that soccer goal that determined who won the World Cup, and we say, I want that. But we don't look enough behind the scenes, the methodology and the hard work. We don't fall in love with the process. And now we have a society without a realistic compass of accomplishing success. All of this begs one question. Could we truly accomplish our wildest dreams? Could we make the impossible possible? For some, they might say no. For others, they might say yes. I've developed two methods during my journey that I believe will work to accomplish anything you set out to do. The first method being the sequential pyramid method. I want you to think about a traditional pyramid with a twist. The sequential pyramid method is actually consisting of small blocks that represent mini goals, once accomplished, lead to one another in a sequential manner, and therefore leading you to the peak of your pyramid, which represents your ultimate goal. The second one, which complements the pyramid, is the incremental microsteps method. This is Arianna Huffington's infamous method, which consists of small science-backed actions that you can take every day that make small and big changes to your life, immediate and long-term changes to your life. So I want you to think about you wanting to do 100 push-ups a day. Let's say you're not a superhero and you want to go from doing 0 push-ups to 100 push-ups a day. A lot of people might tell you that you're not able to do it, and for most, it's true. And others might tell you, why don't you do 25 today, tomorrow you do 50, the next day you do 75, and then 100. Well, microsteps are even further than that. Microsteps consist of doing 1 push-up today, 2 push-ups tomorrow, 3 the day after, 4 the day after, and so on. And that is because these goals are so small that if we fail at them, we don't feel that guilt that we usually feel when we fail at bigger goals, but also they're so small that they motivate us to keep going. Now that you have your 2 ingredients, I want you to think about having a recipe. A lot of people Google how to become rich. Or what is the recipe for success? The truth is, in my journey, I've learned that there's no one recipe for all of you. All of our journeys are very unique, and therefore, we're going to have to come up with our own recipes. Now, for context, I want you to think about a cake. Let's say we're baking a cake, and I bring you all the ingredients, and I put them right in front of you. And then I tell you, bake a cake. Will you be able to? No. And it's because of this. You need the right proportions. You need the right ratios of milk and sugar and whatever you need to make a cake to be able to do it. Because otherwise, your cake is going to look like this. And you don't want that. Now, that can tell us a lot about our journeys. It can tell us a lot about how we always look at other people's morning routines and we say, I want to do that. I'm going to wake up in the morning, I'm going to do my routine and my journaling, and we think that's how we're going to be successful. But the truth is, your journey is so unique to you that you need to take these methods and make them work for your own self. Now, the success-driven society that I mentioned earlier presents a lot of problems for us. And one of the problems is it sets us up for failure. And the way it does that is by all these illusions. We look at all these success stories and we say, a successful story is one that is clean, organized, fun, happy. And again, that sets us up for failure because we're not understanding that a really successful journey consists of a lot of failures. We become so impatient that every time something goes bad, we say, I don't want to do this. I give up. I don't want to do this. Because again, we're not falling in love with the journey. We're not falling in love with failing and trying again. Consistency is incredibly important. And I'm going to tell you why. There's a student who many years ago attended high school in South Africa. He finished his high school and then he went on to do college or university. And then when he was doing his higher education, he actually got tired of South Africa and he said, I want to go to Canada. He went to Canada, stayed there for 2 years, change of atmosphere, change of people, change of everything. And then after 2 years, he said, I don't like Canada anymore. I'm going down to the University of Pennsylvania. He went down and he began struggling more than he ever did. He had to combine loans, scholarships, and he had to work 2 jobs at the same time to make ends meet. After a very long journey of consistency and not giving up, this student actually ended up having a degree in physics and another one in economics. He even ended up being accepted to Stanford's PhD program, but dropped out just 2 days into the program. This student you're all familiar with. His name is Elon Musk. And in late 2021, he was actually named by Forbes to not only be the richest man in the world, but also to be the first man in history to get to the $300 billion net worth mark. And that can tell you a lot about being consistent, looking at the long-term goals rather than the short-term, not giving up and falling in love with the journey. I love cake. I love cake. If you couldn't tell already, I love cake, and I think it serves us as a great example of symbolizing our journey and symbolizing the methods that we can use during our journey. Now, let's say I bring you a recipe, right? So now you have all the ingredients to make a cake. You have a wonderful recipe. You have everything set up for you. And I tell you, rush the cake. I tell you, we're in a hurry. Bake the cake twice as fast. Could you do that? Yeah, of course you could. You could put the heat on high, and then you'll have a beautiful cake on the outside, but the inside will look like soup. And that, again, can tell us a lot about how we need to be patient with our journey. First, you need to plan ahead. Second, you need to be very, very consistent. But third, you need to have patience. Lots of patience. I remember when I was younger, I had a lot of good days, but even more bad days than good days. And something that would keep me going through my bad days is that fire inside me that would just not stop on dreaming. I remember I used to stay up all night and dream about how I'm going to change the world, or how I'm going to have impact, how I'm going to truly make a difference in my lifetime. And to be honest, most of my life, that fire inside me wasn't stoked. It wasn't supported. It wasn't cheered on. And that's part of the journey as well. Not being able to be supported in your times that you need the most support. So I was a young dreamer, and I remember that I wanted to make a change, but that change just didn't come until 2017. I remember in 2017 I was very lost. I had a good professional life, but I really wanted to make a change. I just didn't know how. So we were going, my friends and I was just 18 at the time, and we were flying into the United States. I remember at Miami International Airport, just 2 minutes in, after landing and going down through, the bridge, I actually was detained by immigration. And I was stopped for around 4.5 hours at age 18, put in a small room, they call it secondary, and then I was questioned by 2 officers. And the first question that they dared to ask me is, are you or is anyone in your family a terrorist? And at that time, I've already felt very lost. I've already felt very excluded from society for so many reasons. But when I was asked that question, I remember that moment where I literally got out of my body and said to myself, you're even more of an outsider than you ever imagined. And that day really changed me, because I didn't want people that looked like me in the future to struggle the same struggles that I did. I didn't want people that looked like me, or be it anyone that looks different from what's considered traditional or mainstream, to struggle. And so I wanted to make a difference. But how can an 18-year-old immigrant change America? So I went on to this journey, and I wanted to begin the journey for recognition by having the month of April recognized as the National Arab American Heritage Month. But I struggled with the idea, how do I make that happen? You see, the greatest ideas in the world have no blueprint yet. The greatest paths for you don't exist on Google. At the time, I had a marketing firm, which I still do, and I wanted to make a real change. So I put my team together and I said, no matter how busy we are, every single day, we are going to make small changes. So we started tweeting, we started asking people to write about us, we started reaching out to publications, and then what happened following the sequential pyramid, one tweet would lead to one article would end up in a meeting room, one meeting room would end up in a call, in an email, in a meeting, and we start making great progress. But just like every good Disney movie, when the journey is going super, super good, something really bad happens. And then in early 2021, we realized that a lot of people were pulling out from helping us because it was such a controversial and political topic that we were trying to touch base on. And so what we did then, I said, why can we as a marketing firm market and advertise all these products, but we can't advertise social change, social impact? So what we decided to do is we decided to actually go on a mission and have 250 billboards across the United States showcasing the Middle Eastern heritage and the Middle Eastern culture, which consisted of, we have a lot more to offer than the news headlines you see. We have hummus, belly dancing, shawarma, and a lot more. And so we took that as our core, and we kept going with those micro steps every single day until earlier this year, we were able to get the White House, the U.S. Department of State, and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to recognize April as the National Arab American Heritage Month. And yes, that's a great first start to this journey, but what this journey taught us is the moment that we finished this first step, we realized that this small goal, which was big but then became small, shows us a lot more that we can do. The moment we reached that goal, we said, now we have another goal. Just like we could help one culture, one section of the world be more inclusive in a little step, now we can do this for everyone else. So again, smaller goals often lead you to the bigger picture. And then you look back at your life and all these big goals you had when you were a child almost seem so easy. Oftentimes, we look at these inspiring stories and we look at these movies and we say, what a wonderful, inspiring story, but I'll never have one. We almost have a way of realizing, oh, this is cool, but then not making any connection with that story. And that is wrong. Because if you'd put me next to Elon Musk, you'd notice that one of us has a space company and the other one doesn't. But you'd also notice one common denominator. And that common denominator is that we both carved out new paths that didn't exist before us. Paths that are just as valuable and valid as every other path that came before us. And that can tell you that the blueprint to your next dream or to your next journey does not exist. You need to come up with your own ways. You need to plan ahead. You need to be consistent. And most important, you need to be very, very patient. I would like to speak back to that young boy. I'd like to have some closure. I would like to write back to him. So let's go on and do that. I want to say, dear little Pierre, I apologize for not getting back to you earlier, but I didn't know how to help you until today. I'm actually the 23-year-old version of you. And I'm on stage right now with a very cool audience. I promise you that you are right where you belong. Do not fight change. In fact, embrace it, as it will shape the best and most resilient parts of you. Those classmates that make fun of your broken English, believe me, they will become your best friends. Do not fear losing everything you have, because you will rebuild it even stronger. You are capable of achieving your wildest dreams. Just remember to plan ahead, be consistent, and have patience. Lots of it. Yours truly, Pierre from the future. Thank you.